The warship floated silently in the cold, endless void of space. Its metallic surface gleamed faintly under the light of a distant star. Inside, the air was thick with tension. General Tarkin, a towering figure with dark, armored skin and glowing red eyes, paced back and forth across the command chamber. His heavy boots clanged against the metal floor as he barked orders to his crew. The Vraxian Empire was preparing for another invasion, and Tarkin would not tolerate failure. "Status report," he roared, his deep voice echoing through the room like thunder. One of the officers quickly stepped forward, clutching a tablet-like device in his trembling hands. "General, all systems are operational. Fleet is ready to deploy on your command." Tarkin nodded sharply but didn't smile. Satisfaction wasn't something he allowed himself, or anyone else. His sharp gaze swept over the soldiers standing at attention around him. Most of them were strong, disciplined warriors, bred for combat and loyalty. But there was one who stood out, not for his strength, but for his weakness. Jax shifted uncomfortably under Tarkin's glare. He was shorter than the others, his movements clumsy and unsure. His uniform hung loosely on his frame, making him look even smaller. Jax had been part of the crew for years, yet he still struggled during training exercises. Missions that should have been simple often ended in disaster when he was involved. Today was no different. "Jax," Tarkin's voice boomed, cutting through the silence like a blade. Everyone turned to look at the young soldier, their expressions a mix of pity and disdain. Jax flinched but forced himself to step forward. "Yes, General," he said, trying to sound confident but failing miserably. Tarkin loomed over him, his massive shadow swallowing Jax whole. "Do you know why I called you here?" Jax swallowed hard. "No, sir." "You are a disgrace," Tarkin spat, his words dripping with contempt. "Every time we send you into the field, you fail. You embarrass this empire. Tell me, what good are you?" The room fell silent. Jax stared at the ground, unable to meet Tarkin's piercing gaze. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he tried his best, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he mumbled, I don't know, sir." Tarkin snorted, clearly unimpressed. "If you cannot serve this empire, then you are nothing but a waste of resources." He turned away dismissively, signaling the end of the conversation. As Jax retreated to his position, he felt the weight of his failures pressing down on him. Why couldn't he be like the others? Why did everything seem so much harder for him? He clenched his fists, determined to prove himself someday, even if he didn't know how. Far away, on a blue-green planet called Earth, two scientists named Rachel and Daniel worked tirelessly in a dimly lit lab. They had spent weeks analyzing strange signals coming from deep space. Late one night, their monitors lit up with activity. Something was approaching Earth, a small object streaking through the atmosphere. "It's going to crash," Daniel said, pointing at the screen. "We need to investigate." Rachel grabbed her coat without hesitation. "Let's go." They drove to the crash site, navigating winding roads until they reached a dense forest. Smoke rose from the trees where the object had landed. Carefully, they approached the wreckage, a battered pod half buried in the dirt. Inside, they found a man. His clothes were torn, his body bruised and unconscious. Around his neck hung an old dog tag engraved with a single name, Alex. Rachel gently touched his shoulder. "Who are you?" she whispered. Alex stirred slightly, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment, he looked confused, disoriented. Then, in a weak voice, he spoke. "Help me, please." Daniel and Rachel exchanged worried glances. Whoever this man was, he clearly needed their help. Little did they know, his arrival would change everything, for both humans and aliens alike. Back on the alien warship, Jax tried to focus on his duties, but the weight of General Tarkin's words lingered in his mind. A disgrace, the general had called him. The phrase echoed in his thoughts like a cruel chant he couldn't escape. He wasn't sure what hurt more, the harshness of Tarkin's voice or the knowing glances from the other soldiers. They didn't say anything out loud, but their eyes said it all. You don't belong here. Later that day, Tarkin summoned Jax to the command chamber once again. This time, the general wasn't alone. Several high-ranking officers stood by his side, their expressions unreadable. Jax felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he stepped forward and saluted awkwardly. Jax, Tarkin began, his tone cold and deliberate. Your continued failures have become a problem I intend to solve. Jax swallowed hard. Sir, you will join an upcoming mission to test our new weapons technology on one of the moons, Tarkin announced. If you succeed, perhaps you'll prove your worth. If you fail, he paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Well, failure is not something we tolerate. The room fell silent. Jax nodded quickly, though his hands trembled at his sides. He knew this was a death sentence disguised as a chance. The moon they were sending him to was known for its treacherous terrain, sharp rocks, unstable ground, and unpredictable weather patterns. Even the most skilled soldiers struggled there. As Jax left the chamber, he passed by Zira, the ship's medic. She was shorter than most Vraxians, with kind eyes that stood out among the stern faces of the crew. Unlike the others, she didn't sneer or mock him when things went wrong. Instead, she often offered quiet encouragement, even if it was just a few words after a particularly bad training session. You heard about the mission? Zira asked softly as they walked down the corridor together. Jax nodded, avoiding her gaze. Yeah, doesn't matter. I'll probably mess it up anyway. Don't say that, Zira replied firmly. You're stronger than you think. Just focus and trust yourself. Her words surprised him. No one had ever told him he was strong before. It made him pause, if only for a moment. But doubt quickly crept back in. How could he trust himself when he barely understood who he was? That night, Jax lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Sleep eluded him as memories, fragmented and blurry, flashed through his mind. He saw glimpses of strange places, unfamiliar faces, and moments of pain. There was a bright light, a sharp sting, and then nothing. These weren't memories of his life aboard the warship. They felt older, distant, almost like they belonged to someone else. Zira noticed his unease during their next encounter. She found him sitting alone in the mess hall, picking at his food without eating. She slid into the seat across from him and placed a hand on his arm. Something's bothering you, she said gently. Talk to me. Jax hesitated. For a long time, he'd kept his doubts buried deep inside, afraid of what others might think. But something about Zira's kindness made him want to open up. I keep having these dreams, he admitted quietly. Or maybe they're memories. I don't know. They feel real, but they don't make sense. And sometimes, I feel like I don't belong here. Zira frowned, studying him closely. Then she reached out and turned his wrist over, examining the faint scars on his skin. They were old marks, barely visible unless you looked carefully. Most people would have dismissed them as battle wounds, but Zira recognized them for what they truly were, surgical incisions. Where did you get these? She asked, her voice low and urgent. I don't know, Jax replied, pulling his arm away. I've always had them, I think. Before Zira could press further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the intercom crackled to life with an announcement. Unidentified transmission detected. Origin, Earth. All personnel report to stations immediately. Jax and Zira exchanged startled looks. Earth. What could possibly be coming from such a primitive planet? As they hurried to their posts, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected message might somehow be connected to the fragments of his forgotten past. Rachel and Daniel carefully carried Alex back to their research facility. The man was weak, his body battered from whatever ordeal he had endured. They laid him on a medical bed and began examining him while monitoring his vital signs. Despite his fragile state, Alex clung to consciousness, his eyes darting around the room as if trying to piece together where he was. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice raspy and faint. "You're safe," Rachel assured him, her tone calm but firm. "We found you in that pod. Do you remember anything?" Alex closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. When he opened them again, there was a flicker of recognition in his gaze. I think so. I was taken from Earth a long time ago." Daniel frowned, exchanging a glance with Rachel. "Taken? By whom?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. "They weren't human. They did things to me. Experiments. I couldn't fight back." Rachel gently touched his shoulder. "Try to rest. We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, Rachel and Daniel ran tests on Alex's body. What they discovered shocked them. His DNA showed traces of advanced alien biotechnology, tiny, intricate enhancements woven into his cells. These modifications allowed him to survive in extreme conditions, far beyond what any ordinary human could endure. But something about the process had gone wrong, leaving Alex physically weakened and mentally fragmented. As Alex regained strength, bits and pieces of his past started coming back to him. He remembered being abducted from Earth during a camping trip years ago. He recalled waking up in a cold, sterile room surrounded by towering, insect-like creatures. They spoke in clicks and hums, their glowing eyes studying him like a lab rat. Painful procedures followed, each one designed to push his body to its limits. Eventually, something failed, and instead of becoming their perfect soldier, Alex became a broken experiment. Despite the trauma, Alex felt a growing determination. He wanted answers, not just for himself, but for whoever else might still be suffering at the hands of these aliens. When Rachel and Daniel showed him data extracted from his neural implants, Alex realized they might be able to track the signal that led them to him. It could lead them straight to the source. The alien ship. "We need to find them," Alex said one evening, sitting upright in the medical bed. His voice was stronger now, filled with resolve. "If they're still out there, they might come back for Earth. We can't let that happen." Rachel hesitated. "It's dangerous. We don't even know what we're dealing with." "But I do," Alex countered. "At least, part of me does. I've seen their weapons, their technology. If anyone can help us stop them, it's me." Daniel nodded slowly, considering the risks. "He's right. If we wait, they could strike first. And if they're as advanced as Alex says, humanity won't stand a chance." Together, the trio devised a plan. Using the signal's frequency, they would send a message directly to the alien ship. The goal was simple: establish contact and gather information. But Alex insisted on going with them when they traveled to the crash site to set up the transmission equipment. He argued that he might recognize something, or someone, on board the alien vessel. The journey to the forest was tense. Alex sat quietly in the back seat of the car, staring out the window as trees blurred past. Memories continued to surface, flashes of pain and fear mingling with moments of clarity. He remembered faces, other humans who had been taken alongside him. Some had died during the experiments. Others had vanished without a trace. Were any of them still alive? When they reached the clearing where the pod had landed, Rachel and Daniel worked quickly to assemble the transmitter. Alex paced nearby, his heart pounding. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the thought of confronting his captors or the possibility that they wouldn't care about him anymore. To them, he was probably just another failed experiment. Finally, the equipment was ready. Daniel typed in the coordinates, and Rachel activated the signal. A low hum filled the air as the message shot into space, invisible yet powerful. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble slightly, and a faint crackle echoed through the sky. "They heard us," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. But what came next remained uncertain, and potentially deadly. On the moon, Jax and his squad prepared for the mission with uneasy silence. The air was thin, and the landscape looked like something out of a nightmare. Jagged rocks jutted out of the ground, and clouds of gray dust swirled around their feet. The experimental weapon they were testing was large and unwieldy, its design unfamiliar even to the engineers who had built it. Jax could feel the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down on him, and he knew this was his last chance to prove himself. "Stay focused," the squad leader barked, his voice sharp over the comms. "We're here to test the weapon, not sightsee." Jax nodded, though no one was looking at him. He adjusted the heavy pack on his back and followed the group into the rocky terrain. The weapon hummed faintly as they carried it toward the designated testing area, its energy core glowing an ominous red. Jax tried to push away the doubts in his mind, but they lingered like shadows. What if he messed up again? What if someone got hurt because of him? The first problem arose almost immediately. The weapon's targeting system malfunctioned, causing it to emit bursts of unstable energy that scattered debris in every direction. One of the soldiers shouted in alarm as a chunk of rock narrowly missed his head. Chaos broke out as the squad scrambled to stabilize the device, but the situation only grew worse. Sparks flew from the weapon's core, and a loud hissing sound filled the air. "Fall back," the squad leader yelled, but before anyone could move, part of the ground beneath them collapsed. Two soldiers tumbled into the newly formed crater, their cries echoing through the barren landscape. Without thinking, Jax sprang into action. He grabbed a rope from his pack and tossed it down to the fallen soldiers. His hands trembled as he secured the line, but his movements were steady enough to pull them to safety. When the dust settled, the squad stared at him in stunned silence. Even the squad leader, who rarely showed emotion, gave him a nod of approval. "You saved them," Zira said later, when the group returned to the ship. Her tone was warm, almost proud. "That was brave." Jax shrugged, trying to play it off. "I just did what anyone would have done." But deep down, he felt a flicker of hope. For once, he hadn't failed. Maybe there was more to him than he thought. Back on the warship, General Tarkin watched the mission footage with narrowed eyes. He couldn't deny that Jax had shown courage and quick thinking, qualities he valued in his soldiers. Yet something about Jax still unsettled him. It wasn't just his weakness or his strange scars. It was the way he didn't quite fit in, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. Tarkin's thoughts were interrupted by an urgent alert. A transmission had been detected, coming from Earth. His officers rushed to trace its origin, but the message itself was already playing on the main screen. It was simple, spoken in broken but understandable Vraxian. "We know you're out there. We want answers." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed the words. No one spoke until Tarkin growled, "Who sent this?" One of the technicians hesitated before answering. "It appears to be human, sir. Primitive, but deliberate." Tarkin slammed his fist against the console. "Humans," he spat, as if the word left a bad taste in his mouth. Inferior beings playing at being clever. But then, the screen switched to a live feed. A man appeared, his face pale but determined. Around him stood two others, clearly scientists. The man spoke again, this time in clear Vraxian. "My name is Alex. I was taken from Earth years ago. If you recognize me, you'll know I'm telling the truth." Tarkin froze. The man's face stirred something deep within him, a memory, long buried. He leaned closer to the screen, studying the man's features. Then, without warning, he turned and stormed out of the room, barking orders over his shoulder. "Bring Jax to my chamber. Now." Confusion rippled through the crew, but no one dared question the general. Whatever was happening, it was clear that things were about to change. For better or worse, Jax stood outside General Tarkin's chamber, his heart pounding like a drum. The guards on either side of the door didn't say a word as they ushered him inside. Jax had been summoned to the general's presence countless times before, but this time felt different. The air was heavier, charged with an energy that made his skin prickle. Tarkin was waiting for him, his massive frame silhouetted against the dim red glow of the chamber's lights. His glowing eyes locked onto Jax the moment he entered. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jax shifted uncomfortably under the general's intense gaze, unsure what to expect. "Tell me, soldier," Tarkin finally said, his voice low and deliberate. "Do you remember your life before joining the Vraxian Empire?" Jax blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Before? I don't know, sir. My memories are fuzzy." Tarkin's jaw tightened. He turned to a console nearby and tapped a few commands. A holographic image flickered to life. A human face, pale and weary, but unmistakably familiar. Jax stared at it, his breath catching in his throat. Something about the man's features stirred a deep, unsettling feeling within him. "Do you recognize him?" Tarkin asked, his tone sharp. Jax hesitated. "I'm not sure. Should I?" Tarkin ignored the question and continued. "This is Alex Carter, a human taken from Earth years ago. Our scientists experimented on him, attempting to enhance his abilities. The project failed, and rather than dispose of him, we erased his memory and integrated him into our ranks." Tarkin paused, his glowing eyes narrowing. "That human is you." The room seemed to tilt around Jax. His knees felt weak, and he had to steady himself against the wall. Memories surged forward, chaotic and overwhelming. He saw flashes of bright lights, heard the hum of alien machinery, felt the searing pain of needles piercing his skin. And then he saw faces, other humans, screaming, pleading, disappearing into darkness. It was all real. He wasn't a Vraxian soldier. He was Alex Carter, a human who had been stolen from his home and turned into something else. "Why are you telling me this now?" Jax, "No, Alex," asked, his voice trembling. "Because Earth has contacted us," Tarkin replied. "They found another pod, another human. They're demanding answers, and they've sent a message directly to us." "Your message?" Alex's mind raced. Another human. Could it be someone else from his past? Someone who had survived the experiments? Hope and fear warred within him, leaving him dizzy. "You will lead an assault on Earth," Tarkin declared, snapping Alex out of his thoughts. "If you fail, you will die. If you succeed, perhaps you'll earn your place among us once more." But Alex didn't respond. His mind was elsewhere, piecing together fragments of his identity. He thought of Zira's kindness, of the squad he'd saved on the moon, of the humans back on Earth who were fighting for answers. Slowly, a spark of defiance ignited within him. "I won't do it," Alex said quietly, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. Tarkin's eyes widened in shock. "What did you say?" "I won't attack Earth," Alex repeated, louder this time. "I'm not one of you. I'm human." Tarkin stepped closer, his towering frame looming over Alex. For a moment, it seemed like he might strike him down where he stood. But instead, he leaned in, his voice a dangerous whisper. "You may have been born human, but you've lived as a Vraxian. You owe us your loyalty." "No," Alex said firmly. "I don't owe you anything. You took my life, erased my memories, and turned me into a weapon. That ends now." Tarkin straightened, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, without another word, Tarkin turned and left the chamber, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts. Back on Earth, Rachel and Daniel watched the transmission feed anxiously. They had sent their message hours ago, but there was still no response from the alien ship. Alex sat beside them, his hands clenched into fists. He knew the aliens wouldn't ignore the challenge. The question was, how would they respond? Suddenly, the screen flickered to life again. This time, it wasn't a recorded message. It was live footage of the alien warship. And standing in the center of the frame, staring directly at the camera, was Alex's own face. Rachel gasped. "Is that you?" Alex nodded slowly, his heart pounding. It's me, or at least, it's who I used to be. The implications hit them all at once. Alex wasn't just a victim of alien experiments. He was proof that humanity could fight back. Together, they vowed to uncover the truth and protect Earth from whatever threats loomed in the stars. The alien warship erupted into chaos the moment Alex's face appeared on the transmission screen. Soldiers shouted orders, alarms blared, and technicians scrambled to analyze the message. Tarkin stormed back into the command chamber, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. He stared at the live feed showing Alex alongside the humans on Earth. The connection was clear now. This wasn't just a random human demanding answers. It was Jax, or rather, Alex Carter, the failed experiment they had tried to erase. This is unacceptable, Tarkin roared, slamming his fist against the console. How dare they use him against us? Zira stood nearby, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. She had always suspected there was something unusual about Jax, but she never imagined he was human. Her heart ached for him, knowing the pain he must be feeling after learning the truth about himself. Tarkin turned to one of his officers. Cut the transmission. Now. But before anyone could act, Alex spoke again. His voice was calm but firm, carrying a weight that silenced the room. General Tarkin, I know you're watching. You took me from my home, erased who I was, and tried to make me something I'm not. But I remember now. I'm Alex Carter, and I won't let you hurt anyone else. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Tarkin's glowing eyes narrowed as he processed the defiance in Alex's tone. For years, he had ruled through fear and intimidation, crushing any hint of rebellion. But this was different. Alex wasn't just defying orders. He was rejecting everything the Vraxian Empire stood for. You think you can stand against us? Tarkin growled, leaning closer to the screen. You are nothing without us. We made you what you are. No, Alex replied, his voice steady. You broke me, but you didn't destroy me. And now, I'm choosing to fight back. On Earth, Rachel and Daniel exchanged nervous glances. They had no idea how the aliens would respond, but Alex's bravery gave them hope. Together, they prepared for the worst while clinging to the possibility that their message might spark change, not just for humanity, but for the Vraxians too. Back on the warship, Tarkin faced a dilemma. He could order an immediate attack on Earth, wiping out the humans and silencing Alex once and for all. Or he could confront Jax directly, forcing him to choose between loyalty to the Empire and his newfound identity. In the end, Tarkin chose the latter. He ordered Jax brought to the bridge, where the entire crew could witness the confrontation. When Alex arrived, escorted by guards, the tension in the room was palpable. Soldiers whispered among themselves, unsure whether to pity or despise the man who had once been one of them. Jax, Tarkin began, his voice cold and commanding. You have betrayed your people, your purpose. Do you truly believe these weak humans are worth fighting for? Alex met Tarkin's gaze without flinching. They're not weak. They're survivors, just like me. Tarkin sneered. Survivors. Humans are insects compared to us. They cling to their fragile planet, blind to the power we possess. And yet here we are, Alex countered. Your empire built me, but it couldn't control me. Maybe that says more about you than it does about me. The room fell silent. Even Tarkin seemed taken aback by Alex's boldness. For the first time in years, doubt flickered across his stern face. He had always believed in the superiority of the Vraxian race, but Alex's words planted a seed of uncertainty. Before Tarkin could respond, chaos broke out among the crew. Some soldiers sided with Alex, inspired by his courage. Others remained loyal to Tarkin, unwilling to question their leader's authority. The argument escalated into a physical struggle, dividing the ship into two factions. Amid the confusion, Zira approached Alex. What will you do now? She asked quietly. I'll stop them. Alex said, I won't let them hurt Earth or anyone else. With renewed determination, Alex disabled the ship's weapon systems, cutting off its ability to attack. Using the communication array, he broadcast a final message to the fleet. This ends now. Choose your own path, but leave humanity alone. Tarkin watched silently, his fists clenched. For a moment, it seemed like he might strike Alex down. Instead, he stepped back, his expression unreadable. "You've made your choice," he said. "May it bring you peace." As the warship retreated into the stars, Alex stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. The immediate threat had passed, but the warship's retreat didn't mean the danger was over. Alex stood on the bridge of the alien vessel, his heart still racing from the confrontation with Tarkin. Around him, the crew was divided. Some soldiers had chosen to follow Alex, while others remained loyal to Tarkin. The tension was thick, and though the weapons systems were disabled, no one knew how long that would last. Zira approached Alex cautiously, her eyes filled with concern. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Now, I go home," he said firmly, "and I make sure Earth is safe." Zira nodded, understanding the weight of his decision. "If you need help, I'll come with you." Her words surprised Alex, but they also gave him strength. He realized he wasn't alone in this fight. There were others who saw the flaws in the Vraxian Empire and wanted to change it. Together, they could do more than just survive. They could inspire others to question the system that had controlled them for so long. With Zira's help, Alex gathered the soldiers who had sided with him and began preparing a small shuttle for departure. They worked quickly, knowing Tarkin might change his mind and try to stop them. As they loaded supplies onto the shuttle, Alex couldn't shake the image of Tarkin's face during their final exchange. The general hadn't attacked him or tried to kill him. Instead, he had stepped back, almost as if he respected Alex's choice. It was a small victory, but one that gave Alex hope. Maybe even someone as powerful as Tarkin could change, if given enough time. Back on Earth, Rachel and Daniel waited anxiously at the research facility. When the alien shuttle finally descended into the atmosphere, they rushed outside to greet it. Alex stepped out first, his face pale but determined. Behind him came Zira and a handful of former Vraxian soldiers, their expressions cautious but hopeful. Rachel ran to Alex, tears streaming down her face. "You did it," she said, hugging him tightly. "You came back." Alex smiled faintly, though his eyes were heavy with the weight of everything he'd been through. "I'm not sure I've done anything yet, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few days, Alex worked with Rachel and Daniel to share what he knew about the Vraxians, their technology, their tactics, and their weaknesses. Zira and the other defectors joined in, offering valuable insights that could help humanity prepare for future encounters. Together, they formed a team dedicated to protecting Earth from alien threats. But Alex's journey wasn't just about fighting enemies. It was also about finding himself. He spent hours talking with Rachel and Daniel, piecing together fragments of his past. Slowly, the memories began to fit together like a puzzle. He remembered his family, his friends, the life he had before being taken. It was painful, but it was also healing. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Alex stood outside the facility and looked up at the stars. Zira joined him, standing quietly by his side. "Do you think we'll ever see them again?" she asked, nodding toward the sky. "Probably," Alex replied. "But next time, we'll be ready." Zira smiled faintly. "You've changed, Alex. You're stronger than you think." Alex chuckled softly. "Maybe, or maybe I just finally figured out who I am." As they stood there, watching the endless expanse of space, Alex felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he was ready to face them, not as a weapon or a soldier, but as a human. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Far away aboard the retreating warship, General Tarkin sat alone in his chamber. The events of the past few days weighed heavily on him. For the first time in his life, he questioned the empire he had sworn to serve. Perhaps Alex was right. Perhaps there was another way. Though he didn't voice it aloud, Tarkin made a silent vow to rethink the Vraxian path. Change wouldn't come easily, but it had to start somewhere. As the stars twinkled above, two worlds moved closer to understanding each other, one step at a time.